Alright, sorry for that sudden stop there. I meant to warn you into part 2 of the video. But let me just repeat what I said in part 1. We know that the scenes with Bloom and Daphne can only be Bloom because it's Bloom's sister, not anyone else's sister. Alright, so, but in the start of that episode, Pushing the Envelope, where she finds the supposed envelope to the answers of the quiz, that didn't have to be her. You know, she gets exposure for that at the beginning of the episode, but that did not have to be her. That has nothing to do with her past. It definitely could have been somebody else. Okay. Season 1, Episode 8, titled A Friendship Surrendered. This is where Stella and Bloom went to the Day of the Rose. And it's also where Icy disguised the nut to trick Bloom into giving Riven the helmet. Alright, now Stella was also there with her, and this didn't need to be Bloom either. Riven has nothing to do with her past. So, again, this definitely could have been, you know, she could have been replaced by Stella. But let's not blame Bloom here, because Icy's the one that went after her. Okay? Alright. Season 2, Episode 19, titled Shadows of Bloom. Okay, this is where Professor Avalon, you know, the fake Professor Avalon, put a dark spell on her and she didn't realize it. And he somehow knew that she knew where the secret library was, because she's the one that found the secret library at the start of the episode. He wanted her to get the codex to give it to Lord Darkar. So again, she did not have to be the one that found, she didn't have to be the one that found that library. That could have been somebody else. And therefore, the episode would have been about them and not her. Alright, so those are just 3 examples. So it's true. There were some things she got that did not have to do with her story. That could have been someone else. But I'm talking about the overall here. And a lot of the scenes we seen were from her story. Alright, let's see. Alright, so let's talk about Season 1 for a minute. I'm just going to talk about the Dragon Flame and how the Tricks, before they finally stole the flame from her, they had a few attempts, failed attempts, before they actually got it. Alright, Season 1, Episode 10, when she was in the magical reality chamber taking a test, that's when they were trying to see if she had it. Alright, so that's why the episode's about her, because that's the Tricks going after her. Season 1, Episode 14, titled Bloom's Dark Secret. This is where she met Murda in the woods. And this is again where the Tricks try to get the flame, but they couldn't do it. Season 1, Episode 15, titled Cold Spell. Again, when the Tricks tried to drain the Winx powers to get to Bloom. Alright, so my point here is throughout the seasons, a lot of people were looking for her because of the flame. Alright, the flame has been a target ever since the Ancient Witches, and ever since Bloom got it, all the same stuff happened to her. Alright, so if hearing her name over and over again all over the place bothers some people, that's understandable. But blaming her isn't fair because, you know, it's the villain's fault. They're the ones that are coming to her. Alright, if Musa had it, you would hear Musa all over the place. And if Stella had it, you would hear Stella all over the place. Alright. So again, in Season 1, Episode 1, the moment she finds out she has powers, all this really should be anticipated. She would want to look into it, etc. Alright. Now, sometimes it's natural not to know why things are happening. But if you don't know, at least do some research instead of making all these blind assumptions, alright? Things happen for a reason, and making assumptions and acting like they're facts is just haughty. If you don't know why something is the way it is, at least do research before pointing fingers, because sometimes we are all guilty of causing our own problems. It's not always someone else's fault. Alright? And like I said earlier, the way the show is built is not going to be everybody's taste, and that's okay. But it's just like the Spider-Man example. Other characters get exposure, but not as much as the main character because it's their story. Okay? Just because you don't like the way the show is built doesn't give you the right to treat it like something it's not. And complaining about Bloom is not respecting her entitlement. You know, that's just haughty. Who do you think you are? It's arrogant. It's not your show, it's Straffy's, and he can make it however he wants. Alright? I just want to bring out another thing about an example. Season 2, there was an episode about Musa where she performs on stage. She got the most exposure in there. Why? Because it was her story about her parents. We see the others, well, we mainly see Musa because it was about her background with her mother and father. So the same thing could go for any of these girls. Alright? So I'm going to bring out that one of the only things that Bloom has gotten that she did not need, just like those extra scenes I brought out that did not have to be her, was the Bloomix. We all know that has nothing to do with her past, and it definitely was not needed. And I'm not talking about it transformation-wise. I'm talking about it name-wise. Alright, because the transformation came from her because she was the only one left who had powers. That's no coincidence, guys. That's the Dragon Flame. And that's how it is, and we should expect that by now. The flame is what the flame is. Alright? But however, the name of the transformation definitely could have been different. And I personally think Flamix would have been pretty cool, more on the flame itself. Alright? But it coming from her was no coincidence. The flame is inextinguishable. And she gave parts of it to the others. But the name definitely could have been different. Alright? Okay, so I'm going to say one more thing about Musa. And she's the fairy of music, so of course she can sing on the microphone. But just because she's the fairy of the music doesn't mean there aren't room for others, okay? You guys are the ones who are saying, oh, Bloom, I want to see somebody else. But same with Musa. There's room for everybody, right? So there's room for others on that microphone. Alright, so Stella sang on the microphone in season 2. Alright, Bloom could sing on it. Flora could sing on it. There's room for everybody. Alright, she is the fairy of music, not the fairy of vocals. She plays instruments too. Okay? Alright, so I'm going to bring out the subject of movies or TV shows that are named after the main character. Cinderella is named after the main character. Alice in Wonderland, that's named after the main character. But there are other movies or shows out there that aren't named after the main character, such as The Sound of Music. We all know Maria is the main character in there. She does have a big exposure with the Von Trapp family, but if you look at the cover of Sound of Music, you can see she takes up the whole cover. Alright? Even the very first scene of The Sound of Music shows Maria alone, just like the first scene of Winx shows Bloom in her house. Alright? So the Winx Club does not have to be named after Bloom, because The Sound of Music is not named after Maria. Alright? If you think that something should always be named after the protagonist, that's you. But not everyone needs to have your taste. Okay, everybody's different. Right? Alright, so I'm just going to bring this out one more time. I know I said it a few times, but again, you cannot expect anything different until she finished her checklist that she did not give to herself. Okay? It's just like saying, oh, you know, I love the Spider-Man movie, but Spider-Man's my least favorite because it's all about him and there are other characters. And that's just ignorant to say because it's his story. Okay? And her story did not last the whole show because we know season 4 was about Roxy. So like I said earlier, at least say, oh, I wish she could have made it shorter, or I wish she could have had less things to do. That way you're being fair. Because she had to save her sister. And you wouldn't want her to save her sister also you can see something else? That's pretty selfish. You know, again, she did not give herself that checklist. She did not give herself those things to do. It goes all back to the ancient witches and they're to blame. Alright, so be fair, please. Alright, so I just want to close this with saying, the next time you're not sure why something is the way it is, or you find it annoying, check yourself first before pointing fingers, and get off your high horse, please. And I'm not talking to everybody, I'm talking about these arrogant people out here who act like they're not in the wrong, when you're the one who's jumping to conclusions. If you don't know why something is the way it is, at least do research instead of making all these haughty assumptions like you're all that. Get off your high horse, please. Okay, that's all I want to say for now. Alright. Season 6 and on. Season 6, I watched it and it already seems so different. So, that's great. And apparently there's going to be a Season 7 too. So that's great as well. I'm really looking forward to those seasons.